Welcome back for another monthly development update recap for the upcoming MMORPG Ashes of Creation. I'm a few days late on this one, so big thank you to those of you guys that are still here watching. As always, we have a lot to talk about. I'll leave chapter markers below. Let's jump on in. Please keep in mind that much of the footage that I show in these videos is from the Alpha 1, and an alpha is a game that's still in development. So Intrepid Studios recently started doing a monthly highlighted fan question, and I'm going to start off this video with that. A subscriber asked if there will be character appearance customizations that require in-game challenges to achieve, and the answer to this was yes. Steven, who is Intrepid Studios' owner and creative director, brought up his idea of having scars or tattoos that may be unlocked by players who participate in certain in-game events. This could include sieges or even just completing specific quests. In Ashes of Creation, there will be salon buildings, and these facilities will give you a reason at times to revisit the character customizer. So it's not just something that you'll do in the beginning of the game. It'll definitely be interesting to see what Intrepid does with this and how far they take it. If you ended up missing the initial showcasing of the Alpha 2 character creator, be sure to watch my video on that, link will be below. For a general studio update, we just got the typical news. Things are going well and Intrepid is continuing to hire new employees. Since the start of 2022, Intrepid now has 23 new Intrepidites. As for the design and engineering teams, we're told that they've been working heavily on the node layout system. As many of you know, in the Alpha 1, the nodes were pretty basic looking, but for the Alpha 2, there should be a lot more to them, including different topography and elevation levels, so they're not just one flat village or city. Node superpowers are also currently being worked on, and for those of you that may be unfamiliar, a node superpower is basically a benefit that citizens of a node will get when their node reaches the Stage 6 Metropolis form. For example, if you're a citizen of a scientific node, when that node becomes a metropolis, you and other citizens will get access to some teleportation systems. That's the scientific node's superpower, or at least part of it. If an economic node reaches Stage 6, citizens of that node will get some auction house benefits, such as having world access to auction houses. All of this is of course subject to change and will also need quite a lot of testing. The node Reliquary system is also a big focus, and we should expect to see this system active in the Alpha 2. Relics and ashes are embodiments of certain types of achievements. Nodes that earn and hold these relics will receive benefits which can be both active and passive in nature. It's important to note though that these relics can be stolen, so if a node is successfully destroyed, the node building that represents the reliquary holding relics can be looted. Combat is of course still a heavy focus, which it has been since the conclusion of the Alpha 1. Many of us are obviously very curious as to how the next version of the combat system will be, but we're going to have to wait a little longer for an actual preview. Other aspects of the game that Intrepid has been hammering down on include buoyancy and also vehicle physics. Vehicle physics in this case are referring to mounts, and since Ashes has such a wide variety of different types of mounts, this is an aspect of the game that's very important to get right. I actually did speed tests for all of the mounts in the Alpha 1. Everything is subject to change of course, but for any of you that are interested, I'll leave a link to that video below. It's kinda cool. Itemization and crafting are now on the forefront. In the Alpha 1, we had a really basic crafting loop where players would simply collect gatherables, combine them, and then get said item. There wasn't really much of a representation of the professions, and it was very, very simple. The Alpha 2 is meant to represent professions in their true form, and we should not only expect more depth, but also just more crafting and profession systems, and also systems that are related to crafting. Have a listen to Steven talk a bit about land management.
We've talked about ideas like land management, and as you draw resources from your surrounding area, what type of effect does that have on the land? And then also, how effectively can you draw those resources without having such a deleterious effect on the land, right? Which might impact future resource gathering for some period of time. And it makes relevant the movement of these players who are collecting these goods from the environment, that they actually cannot always just do so in one particular area as the land management begins to degrade. So it actually encourages movement across the world to discover new areas that might not be as perturbed as the ones you're coming from.
The big topic today, however, is the event system, which is how content gets introduced to the world. The world of Vera will be reacting to player activity. Like I mentioned before, the node system is the core of Ashes of Creation. It's what makes it stand out, and basically everything in the game revolves around it. As a node levels or delevels, the world around it will change. And this is part of the event system. But there's actually a lot more to it than just nodes leveling and deleveling. There are several types of events and several predicates that can go into triggering these events. These predicates act as requirements that must be satisfied before a particular story arc or a particular event can kick off. Some examples of events include plagues, forest fires, blizzards, volcanic eruptions, and also various other natural disasters. There can be responses from NPC or monster factions, and in the video footage that I'm showing right now, you're actually seeing an event where goblins are attacking a node in its town stage. There's always a clock ticking in the world of Vera, and there will be events that are continually developing and forming. If players do not respond to the sign of some of these events and attempt to stop them from advancing in stages, players' day-to-day activities will be affected. There will be new obstacles to overcome, and sometimes these obstacles can even be world-changing or lead to other world-changing events, such as neighboring nodes taking advantage of other nodes' vulnerable states. Stephen gave us some more details on node attacks, like you can see with these goblins, and he said that some events will lead to node attack events, and these attacking enemies will have a particular type of hate list on certain buildings that a node may have access to. Depending on what is going on in the story arc at that time, or just in the world in general, this will affect what buildings monsters may focus their efforts on destroying. Then we got some information on monster coin events, and monster coins are items that allow players to become monsters for a period of time. Some events will allow players to opt in from the monster's perspective, and in Steven's words, take out their rage on other players without having to be their own player character. An interesting system that I honestly forgot was briefly mentioned in the past. There will also be POI events, or points of interest events, and one example might be where a hostile NPC enemy faction takes over a certain tower, which is the POI, or outpost, when the node in that area ends up leveling up. As nodes level, the world around them will become more powerful, and this is one way of achieving that power. Then of course there will be certain types of PvP-driven objective events as well. And the last thing I'll quickly touch upon are calendar events, which we do see in many other MMOs, and these mostly consist of holidays, I guess you could say. In Ashes of Creation, there will likely be some calendar events that correlate to IRL holidays a bit, but some of the holidays will also be in-game lore-driven, or perhaps a mix of both. So yeah, the event system, if done in a quality manner, really seems like something that's going to help keep us players engaged with the world. Perhaps there's a time where you start getting sick of Ashes of Creation, but then you check your Discord and you have messages from your guild that a volcano erupted in the area, and then neighboring nodes are now attacking your node because your node's in a vulnerable state. Stuff like that's going to help keep us wanting to come back to participate in this ever-changing world. All right, now on to one of my favorite sections of all of these videos, the environmental and character art, and then we'll end with the answers to the Q&A. This is some concept art for the Pyre Elves node architecture. Intrepid does seem to do well with turning concept art into actual 3D game environments, so this makes me quite excited. These pictures are in-game shots of some Ayla human ruins. You can already see some major lighting improvements in the most recent screenshots that we're seeing with the recent development updates, and I think a lot of that comes down to Intrepid's switch to Unreal Engine 5, or should I say, update to Unreal Engine 5. This changing in-game picture is an example of how seasons are going to work. Steven says that we'll be seeing a video for this at some point in the near future, and he seems to be really excited to show that off. The cool thing here is that seasons are going to have a big effect on several aspects of the game outside of just game visuals, such as major effects on farming. This is a 3D game representation of the Sleep Seer's Rement costume / attire. And it wouldn't be a video without showing a mount and mount skin. This one is called the Steed of the Frayed Corpse. These little cutie patooties are amethyst bowbites, and they're supposed to be llama-like creatures with turtle influences. This right here is a work-in-progress scarab mount, as many Ashes fans have apparently been asking for insect mounts. And last but not least, we got to look at a work-in-progress giant scorpion boss. As you can see in this image, this scorpion is quite large to say the least. Now I'm going to rapid fire the answers to the Q&A. I appreciate those of you who have made it this far in the video. In naval combat, ramming your ship into other ships, or perhaps even raid bosses, might actually be a thing. Certain ship components and classes could excel at this type of naval combat. If your ship is destroyed out at sea, you'll either have to swim back in, have another ship come save you, or you could just drown your character to save time, but you'll of course have to pay the penalty of death. Ashes is a game where when things happen, you have to deal with the consequences. There's no easy way out, such as having a recall point. Have a quick listen to Steven talk about this.
Because some games have, things that will let you go back to shore or recall back or something of that sort.
Yes. No, we don't have a recall. We don't have that type of, there is consequence for you losing the means of your mobility. And if you lost the means of that mobility, then those consequences are it's going to take you longer to get to where you need to go, or you're going to have to suffer some experience debt.
Honestly, hearing stuff like this is what has really piqued my personal interest in Ashes of Creation. Too many games, in my opinion, don't really have real consequences to your actions. You get off the hook easy with almost everything, and therefore many activities in the game become far less engaging because failure doesn't really matter much. There will be interactions with pets and mounts, such as using specific emotes with them. For the story of Ashes of Creation, there will be both a large overarching story with chapters to a narrative, but also plenty of exploration-based narrative contained in small regional quest lines across the world. Steven says that he wants a healthy dose of both of these. If you're in an area with a high enough level node, you will likely be able to just stay in that area and reach max level with your character. However, this wouldn't likely be the most effective or efficient or even fun way to go about leveling. It'll also definitely be reduced speed compared to if you traveled the world and completed all sorts of different quests. If you decide to give up your citizenship to a node that's about to be sieged, there could be some negative consequences depending on the policies that node government has established. To keep Tier 1 mounts relevant throughout the game, they will have their own types of abilities that are unique to the Tier 1s. Just because you got a gliding mount does not mean that you no longer need one of your Tier 1 land mounts. Professions are going to take a lot of time to balance correctly, but as of now, players will likely only be able to truly master 2 or 3 professions. They can still participate in other professions, but true mastery comes at a cost. And that'll be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do have an Ashes of Creation playlist. I'll leave a link to that below in the video description, and I think it has maybe 25 plus videos on it now for those of you guys that want to catch up with news and also just systems overviews and stuff like that. And I'll catch you guys on the next, well, I'll have a video in a couple days, but the next Ashes video will likely be next month, and I'll catch you guys then.